In this video, you will learn about new tool for Amazon sellers called Manage Experiments, found inside Seller Central. It helps to split test A+ content, product images, and product title. Our guest today is Anthony Cofrancesco from Pickfu. He will share why sellers should do a split testing on Amazon. He also mentions additional split testing tools of Amazon. One of them is Pickfu, which helps sellers to test their creatives. And if you would like to try Pickfu, you will find the link below in the description, as well as 50% discount code. This video is hosted by Lisette Liz. She works with different Amazon businesses. And finally, if you will find anything useful in this video, don't forget to click the like button below and also subscribe to our channel.
Anthony, thank you for joining me today here on OrangeClick YouTube channel. So before we go into today's topic, can you please introduce yourself and tell us what you do in the Amazon space?
Sure thing. Hey, everybody. My name is Anthony Cofrancesco. I'm the industry liaison here at Pickfu. It's a market research company that a lot of e-commerce sellers use to test primarily their creative assets. I work generally with our larger end clients and our agencies and different affiliates, really working around creating case studies in the industry and trying to figure out what are the best applications for market research and split testing.
Okay, cool. So today's topic is also about split testing, and especially about split testing on Amazon and off Amazon. So can you briefly introduce what options there are on Amazon platform itself to split test different parts of listing?
Yeah, so this is a long time coming with this presentation. I've got a few slides that I'll be walking through today, but basically about 2 years ago, Amazon started first releasing Managed Experiments. So it was a tool inside of Seller Central, which allowed you to do split tests. And so before that, there were some other companies that were around, Splitly, Cash Cow Pro, Listing Dojo. And so I'll be walking through some of those today. I'll talk a little bit about Pickfu, but the bulk of this presentation is just going to be about managed experiments inside of Seller Central.
Okay, very good. I'm ready. So if you're ready, then let's go.
All right, let's do it. So thanks again for joining in, everyone. This is what I'm going to call best practices for Amazon FBA for A/B testing. Some of this is pretty new. So I hope that everyone gets some value out of it. I'm going to start off like I normally do with an essential framework. So what is split testing and what is the concept of this inside of Seller Central? For those of you who don't know, I think if you're here, if you've been working in e-commerce for any amount of time, you know what an A/B test is, you know what a split test is. But just for a quick definition, imagine you have people going to your listing or going to your product page. What the software is going to do is it's going to show at random 50% of the people, it's going to show them one version, and then at random, it's going to show the other 50%. It's going to put them into different groups, and it's going to show you the B version. So that's just a split testing, also called A/B testing as well. And so over the past 2 years, Amazon has been expanding its own tools for split testing inside of Seller Central. Now, like I said earlier, there have been other tools in the past that have been allowing sellers to do their own kind of split tests, but this was really the first time that Amazon rolled it out and allowed that to happen within their own platform. Now, this started off just as product titles, and then later Amazon moved to offering A+ content and also product images. But right now, these are the only 3 content types that you can actually test and that are available for experimentation. And there are some pretty big limitations as well in terms of what you can actually do with each of these. So aside from these 3 different categories, so titles, it says product images, but it's really just for your main image and A+ content, there are a few more restrictions. And so only certain sellers are eligible. And more importantly than that, only certain ASINs are eligible as well. So number one is if you want to do managed experiments, you have to be brand registered, right? Super important. On top of that, the individual ASIN. So you can be okay to do managed experiments as a seller, but you also have to, that specific ASIN has to be eligible as well, largely based on traffic, but I'll walk through some of those as well. And then really important as well, you can only do one test at a time per ASIN. So you can't do multiple tests ongoing at the same time. You can't test your main image and your A+ content, just one thing at a time. You have to wait till the entire test completes before starting another one, which generally makes sense, but some of the other tools allowed you to do a little bit more. Now, here's what is actually super interesting is what I'd say is that managed experiments, the tool is the most accurate split testing tool that's out there. And the reason I say that is because every other split testing tool, PickFu, it happens very early on in the beginning, and it's not really tied to real world data. You're testing against market research. The other tools like Splitly, Listing Dojo, it's not directly plugged into the Amazon system, right? So in that regard, I would say in quotes that managed experiments is really the most accurate, and there's some actually really big advantages to it. I really want to be very hopeful about the potential of this product, even though, as you're going to find out, not too many people are using it. But one of the big advantages is that your experimental variations are displayed everywhere. So if you're like testing your title, it's going to show up everywhere that your title shows up. The other thing that's really interesting about it as well is that the content is going to be shown throughout the entire experiment. It's not rotated. So imagine this, right? Like if the experiment is running for 4 weeks, it's going to, over those 4 weeks, it's going to remember exactly who it showed to. And if that person comes back again, they'll always see that version, right? So that experimental content is not rotated versus some of the other split testing tools are doing it on a more narrow time frame, and it doesn't actually isolate who's seeing it. It's just showing at some kind of random probability which version goes up based on time. So this is why I'm saying it's more accurate. Also, what's really interesting about it is they specifically say this, it does running managed experiments will not impact your rankings. And so unlike if you were going to go and do these tests yourself or manually swap out the images, if you actually had something that was quite bad, there probably could be an impact on your rankings. But with Amazon, I guess they're going to kind of take into consideration that one is going to perform not as well as the other and impact your rankings. Now, with that being said, there's also some pretty big setbacks and limitations. So number one, like I said earlier, not all ASINs are eligible. And this tool really is not suited whatsoever towards new sellers. So even if you are a brand new seller, and you are brand registered, most of your ASINs are not going to show up for a few different reasons, primarily because of traffic. But then there's also some other factors that go into actual ASIN eligibility. As well, another disadvantage is that the scope for testing is pretty limited and that the time frame for execution is very long. So I think the minimum you can do is 4 weeks, but what they're really recommending is an 8 to 10 week test. So this is something that is going to take a lot more time to do. And as well, the other disadvantage is you're going to find out at the end, if your result is conclusive, you're going to find out which one won, but you're not going to necessarily understand why that won. So you kind of get to the end of your experiment and you're like, okay, this has been done, this one won, but where do I go from here? And so if you got concrete data and it showed an increase in sales, then that might be all you're looking for, but limited in that regard. The biggest thing that we've seen, and I spent a lot of time researching with other agencies and a bunch of big sellers and masterminds in the group, and the biggest thing that we're seeing right now is ASIN eligibility. So this is actually limiting a lot of sellers from even being able to do this. So if you go into managed experiments, you're going to see that you have no eligible ASINs. And then the wording that they use is they're essentially saying that you need to have high traffic ASINs, and that means several dozen orders per week or more. The problem, though, is when we talk to a lot of sellers that seem to be falling within this category of having several dozen orders or more per week, they still show up as non-eligible for ASINs, especially on the new testing types like main images. So I would assume that some of this has to do with Amazon rolls out these features slowly and they don't give it to everyone right off the bat. But there are definitely a handful of large sellers that I know that are still not eligible, and the reasons aren't quite clear as to why. The thing that's also not helpful about that is Amazon just suggests, well, go run more traffic to the listing, go run more on PPC. And so, I can't quite follow the reason behind that. Other sellers and agencies that I talked to had some more serious reservations around it as well. So number one being metric selection. Sometimes the metrics that you think would be tested, like conversion or click-through rate, weren't actually. It was like a somewhat related metric to that, but it wasn't the primary metric that you would think if you're setting, hey, intuitively, I want to set this up. Sometimes it seems like the people who created this weren't actually Amazon sellers. They were more on the Amazon backend team for data analytics. Another big one that I heard a few times is data privacy. So Amazon has just recently gotten slapped. I think it was in the EU for collaborating and working against some of its own brands. I think we're going to see more and more of these come out. And so obviously sellers are thinking, hey, I could go do my own split test, or I could run it inside of Amazon's platform. What's Amazon doing with that data? And are they going to later use that data to leverage and grow their own brand portfolio or their closer partners? The other thing, which is a little bit more common, is people are seeing inconclusive results. So either limited samples, like it just wasn't large enough of a sample, non-matching data sets. So if they were to compare what was shown in the experiment versus shown in the real world, there were slight differences there. And then also just for methodology and analysis, right? So when you get to the end of the test, asking yourself, well, what was the point in this? What did I really, really learn? Now I'm going to walk through, so that's kind of a high level overview. I want to be really clear when I'm jumping into this too, that I know I probably went through a few disadvantages. The reality and the honest truth of this is I scoured far and wide to find examples of people using this. And what I've basically seen is that there are very, very few sellers using this. And so for anyone watching this, what I would encourage you is to start looking more into doing this, because I think there is some serious value. But yeah, so if we could later do a follow-up on this, I would be really excited. But by and large, right now, very, very few sellers are doing it. But with that being said, let's jump into here's actually how you do it, strategies for actually how to set it up. So step one is you're going to start an experiment. You're just going to go into manage experiments. You're going to click in the bottom right here, and you're going to click a new one for creating a new experiment. You can do A+ content, product title, or main image. Step two is selecting an eligible ASIN. So we talked about this already, but if you have a low traffic ASIN, it's not going to show up. Some ASINs will show up, but require additional detail. So they're going to either require additional detail or give you reasons why that ASIN is not eligible. Some of those are category specific, but again, most of them are related to traffic. Another thing that's important to know when you're selecting your ASINs is you are permitted, you can pick variation ASINs or you can pick children ASINs, but you have to manually go through and select the manner in which it's going to be presented. Again, for a lot of people, unfortunately, and this is what's most frustrating, is you're going to go in, and even on big accounts, because I've seen this on my own accounts and some of the other people that I was working with on this presentation, they're going to say no available ASINs, and then go use advertising or optimize your product keywords. So again, Amazon's put out this great tool, but hasn't really thought through potentially all of the implications. Step three is going to be, you're going to add your experiment details. So you've got your experiment name, you've got hypothesis, and you've got your duration. Experiment name is just basically what you want to call it. It's only visible to you. Just a high level overview of what the purpose of that experiment was. For the hypothesis, most people know what this is, but it should be a question around the core purpose of the experiment, right? It should be pretty clear. So maybe if you're doing your product packaging, so you might come up with a hypothesis. If product packaging in the main image is more eye-catching, then adding it to this ASIN is going to increase traffic. For the experiment duration and start date, so they recommend, again, 8 to 10 weeks, the shortest, and that's what they say is ideal. Obviously, that's super long, right? But you can do shorter options, and you can also end the experiment early. So that's something that a lot of people are asking. You can actually do an 8-week duration and end it whenever you want, but it's just not gonna complete in the same way, but you'll still get the same data. So step four is just selecting your experimental content. This is the really easy part. Product titles, you're just going to type them in. A+ content, you select it from a dropdown, you upload your options and then select, and then your product images, you're just going to upload and select. Step five is a pretty interesting. This is where you're going to submit your experiment and wait for validation. So number one big caution where other people get this messed up is they upload it and they just assume that it's going. It's not. It has to get approved, and not all of the experiments are going to get approved, mainly because you're pushing the boundaries on TOS. So for titles, they have to be 200 characters, or if there's other category-based restrictions. For images, though, this is what I think is the most interesting part. This is the direct language that they use, that Seller Central uses. And so they're not even telling you to avoid, and this is something I've been talking about for a long time that a lot of people just don't believe me on, that Amazon, I don't think they really care so much about, what they really care about is, are you communicating in an efficient way to the customer? So you'll notice there's nothing in here about product packaging. around models, around props, around any of that. All they're saying word for word is images are very important to customers, so quality matters. Choose images that are clear, easy to understand, information rich, and attractively presented. So this is really, really interesting. I think probably the biggest gains that can be made in terms of managed experiments will be within main image testing. And like we're seeing here, we're seeing the additional items, we're seeing the product packaging, we're actually even seeing the front and back of the product packaging, even though this is just a singular item. So I think when you're setting these tests up, really think about this and really think about how can I put as much information in that image that's going to be helpful to the customer. The A+ guidelines are also very vague. They're pretty much just like follow the A+ guidelines. So what I will say though is when you go through, I guess that's re-highlighted there, but when you go through the validation, the biggest thing that makes me concerned with this is that now you're going to say, hey, I'm going to put up a secondary version of the main image, but now a human's going to be going through and seeing like, does this fall within TOS guidelines, or else that experiment might not be validated and it might not go forward. But again, I think if you're guiding yourself by like, okay, is this legitimately helpful to the customer? Is this information rich and is it attractively presented? I think you're going to be inclined to, they're going to let it go. Also, if you're specifically writing your hypothesis and you're doing it in a clear way that you're saying like, your hypothesis is like adding the green pile of matcha powder better indicates what the customer is getting. So if I put this in my main image, will it increase my click-through rate? If someone is going through and approving this and it's like, okay, the reason that they're putting this powder in there isn't to be like, oh, this is clickbait, or this is just intentionally just trying to distract someone. Oh, this is to help the customer make a better buying decision. I think if you phrase your hypothesis in a way that's customer centric, I think you have a much higher chance of getting these experiments approved. Okay, so step 6, setting it up is actually super easy. It's really straightforward because there's really not that many options. Really easy to get to. This is what it actually looks like when you're interpreting your results. So I'm going to go through each of these sections individually, but yeah, this is kind of what it looks like when it's done. Now, given, like I said earlier, you got to wait sometimes very long to make this happen. I think this was a 4-week test, but this is for A+ content. These have been blurred out, but basically what you're getting here is at the end, again, these are why these metrics are kind of strange, is because they're pretty much telling you, they're like, okay, there's a 78% chance that version A is better, a 22% chance that version B is better. They're showing you, again, strange metrics, but unique units per unique visitor. Then they're giving you a breakdown of your conversion, units sold, sales, and then what your sample size was. Again, still a pretty small sample size for a multi-week test, just a few hundred people, especially if this is a pretty well-selling item, but it's going to give you the difference as well. It'll also give you a graph too, where it kind of tracks the sales. And then you've got this section here at the bottom where they actually give you, again, it seems like it seems like some of the features they add in here are just, I don't know why they do it, but they give you a potential 1-year impact estimate. So basically they're multiplying the average daily sales increase by 365. Now, obviously this isn't going to account for seasonality or demand spikes. And then they've got like your likely scenario, most likely, and then your best case and worst case rather. This is based off a median 50% confidence interval. And this is your bottom 5% and your top 95%. So basically, they're just giving you some extra data, I guess, to tell you, hey, this is what you might expect to see if you change this. The thing that I think is the most problematic, though, with this is that if you get to the end of one test, right, you've tested these 2 different versions of, okay, I tested these 2 different versions of the of the A+ content, and this was actually a pretty big jump in conversion rate, 10.3% to 12%. What I would be looking to do now is to say, well, okay, how can we take this up another 1.65%? What was the basis for why version A actually did better? So that's where I think, might get a little bit lost here. Again, I really want to drive this point home. Managed experiments is still quite new and widely unused, right? This is really the tip of the iceberg, and I had to dig really deep just to get what I did here. So the key takeaway here is that big sellers are already getting good value off this. Your competition is using this, especially on the top end. So I would recommend starting to play around with these for sure right now. This tool is not going anywhere, and they're going to continue to be developed. One thing I'll also say here is that Amazon already has the building blocks to scale this tool out. recently I saw, this was shared by a friend of mine. These are some audience targeting categories inside of displayed ads, right? So Amazon has all of this data. Why this is such a restricted tool, I'm not quite sure on yet, but like, this is just what Amazon does. I think they put out features in a very, very base form. They let the power users play around with them. And most sellers look at it and they're like, well, I don't really have a use for that. What I'd recommend is start finding a use, start getting in playing with this. That way, when these tools do become more robust and more hashed out, you're already going to have a leg up on the competition, and you're already going to have some way that split testing has been integrated into your work. What I would recommend is I'm going to walk through each of the different testing classes that you can do and what you might want to keep in mind. So with main images, obviously, what I'm going to want to focus on is like, what props can I use to give context? This seems to do very well. So with this bar, you've got the chocolate, the salt, etc. Think about using models to show the product in use and showing the most relevant application. Again, I think the biggest gains people are going to make quickly are going to be testing main images, as well as like orientation of the product, right? So how can I spread things out to make things wider? How can I put the products in a cool or unique way? Showing packaging, right? With or without packaging. That's one of the biggest questions we get is like, should I show the product with or without product packaging? Good thing to use. And then as well, this is very interesting to me. If you've seen my other talks, I've shown these decals that aren't really part of the product packaging, but they look like they are, but they convey really important information. Again, this is kind of interesting. Like I would put these through just to see if they pass verification, right? And so I know that this is against TOS rules, but now I can know even before an image would be suppressed. I'm going to put it through and just see if I put this 22 grams of protein, put this mint chocolate chip, and I put my hypothesis in a way that the customer is really, that Seller Central is going to be really keen to, oh, this is telling me really important information about the product, to see if it'll pass verification and then put it through on a test. And I'd recommend doing that. For A+ content, what I recommend is like minimal versus non-minimal design, right? This is a very minimal design. This is an even more minimal for A+ content. So play around with those, play around with your color palette, right? Play around with your text selection, your tone of voice. Chris Rawlings just gave a really great presentation a few weeks ago on OrangeClick around A+, and he gave a really great template for A+ listings to convert more. What I recommend is once you've got those templates and you've got it hashed out, play around with these different icons, right? With these different colors, with the different text, and ask yourself, like, is this the best icon that I could have, or could I swap it out for something else? And so start thinking, like, if you can run these tests for free in the background, start having different versions that are slightly different, that are testing the titles, that are testing the visual elements, the graphic elements on the A+ content, and just have those running in the background, see what you learn. Titles are a little bit more simple. There's just not as much you can do here, but I'd recommend thinking about word choice, right? How can, if it's like a water bottle, what are other things that mean the same thing? So like, I don't know, personal hydration device. Like I'm coming up with these off the top of my head, but go beyond what the product research tells you are the main keywords and think about what's going to make the most sense as someone's reading it. Same thing with word order, right? Just changing the order of words, how they're presented, can really make a big difference in how easy it is to comprehend a title. Brand name is a big one. Putting it in, taking it out, right? If I was running my brand right now and I know that there is not going to be a negative effect on my ranking, I would probably try one that has my brand name in the beginning, doesn't have it at all, puts it at the end, right? These are easy things that you can just have running in the background. And maybe there is no difference, but maybe you get to the end of a test and there is a significant difference of dropping your brand name. The other thing that I recommend is your leading words. So these are like the words that first start off the title. And so again, think about if someone's only going to read the beginning, can they get a good indication of what that title is going to be about? So this is the last thing I'll talk about real quick is other tools outside of Seller Central. I'll say in some regards, they seem to be more appealing, at least in the past. PickFu is fundamentally different from a normal split testing tool. It's not really, it's happening in a bubble, but the big advantages of PickFu is it helps you understand why something won. So people aren't just voting, they're giving you feedback as to why they chose that response. So we find that, a lot of people ask, well, let's PickFu. This is like, I want to be very clear. Testing inside of Seller Central is at either a big seller or you've validated, you've got a really good idea for what your main image should look like or your A+ content should look like. PickFu is what happens before that, of like getting up, you can test anything, you can target your audience, and it works even when you don't have an audience, right? And so you take the information you learn from PickFu, and we recommend go and actually use on the other side of things, use the tool in Seller Central, and you can see how that all splits in together. The other options out there, if you don't want to use managed experiments, you've got like Splitly, Cash Cow Pro, Listing Dojo. The advantage is here, obviously, that it's better access to a wider range of sellers. You can also have a wider experimental scopes. So like with Splitly, you can do things like price testing. I think that's actually pretty valuable. I don't know if like change different images in your image gallery. Right now for managed experiments, you just are locked into your main image. So you have more criteria, and they're also just, I think, a little bit more easy to use. The data metric points are a little bit more easy to understand. So last thing I do want to say is a big shout out to Liran Hirschkorn and his team over at Incrementum. I collaborated a lot with them and asked a bunch of questions. Again, like I went around and did not find very many people using this or that had much knowledge. So just a big shout out, and I appreciate Liran helping out. And just a quick plug for Orange Click. Orange Click and Augustus are affiliates at PickFu. It's been helping a lot of people who subscribe to this channel and are part of the different events. So PickFu definitely works. I'm not going to go on about it. Everyone's using it. It's working very well. That's all I'll say. If you haven't used it, use it. It's 50% off, and use the code Orange Click. And yeah, it'll give you 50% off your first test.
Thank you so much. I see you put in a lot of work to really put this presentation together, and I think all the viewers really appreciate it, because it really was like a really comprehensive overview of all the different aspects of this A/B testing tool. And you pretty much covered actually all the questions I had in my head before our interview. So I only have 3 left.
Okay.
And one of them is, did I understand correctly that it's not possible to do the testing within like a certain like customer segment or group when using Amazon testing tools? It's just like random selection of customers.
Yeah, what Amazon says they're going to do is they are going to randomly pick 50% and show each different versions, and then that group will be shown only that version for the entire duration of the test, but no audience targeting right now. I hope they'll add it eventually. Yeah, it'll be much more helpful. So
my second question is it possible to edit those experiments that are already going on?
Edit the experiments. So the answer is you can edit them somewhat, but only for small things. And they're really things that are only facing towards you. Like you can go in and adjust your hypothesis, but you can't change your content. That's the other thing that's kind of an advantage here, is once it's started, you kind of have to stop the experiment if you want to change key parts of it. With that being said, like I said in the presentation, you can stop it early. And it's not like there's any penalty to stopping. It's just like now you started from square one. So what I would say is it's not something you just want to go out on a whim and do. Sit down with your team, sit down with your creative director, and really figure out what's the point of this test, because once you get it started, you really want to have it finish.
And to sum it up, you mentioned there are not a lot of different elements to measure the effectiveness of the test, or to really get to know why one version won over the other one. But can you highlight once more, what are the most important metrics sellers should pay attention to when, let's say, they run a test for A+ content and they would like to really measure why or how the one version performed better than the other one?
Right. So I guess for title and for main image, your primary metric is going to be click-through rate, right? Like it's going to be just traffic based. What am I doing here? And is it driving more traffic to the listing? For the main image plays a little bit into conversion, but A+ definitely plays into conversion. So there you're actually looking for an uptick in sales, increase in conversion, increase in overall sales.
Okay, good. So now we're all set to start experimenting, I guess.
I hope people, when they get to the end of this presentation, I know 90% of the people, 95% of the people watching this have never played around with managed experiments. I hope we start seeing more of this. I hope I can come back in like 6 months, a year, and I've got a lot of people saying, hey, I watched the talk and I started to at least get some kind of value. It doesn't seem, what I will say is there doesn't seem to be any reason not to do this, and they are relatively easy to set up. So work with your creative team, make some dual versions, but you might as well use this tool, get used to how it's running, because it's only going to get better in the future, even if it's slowly.
And let us know as well in the comments how are your experiments going, and hope to see you really after a few time to have an updated look on this topic. So if anybody has any questions for you or would like to reach out to you to ask more about Pigfood, then what's the best way to reach out? And could you once more explain what Pigfood does?
Sure thing. Anyone who wants to get in touch with me, I'm happy to do so. You can hit me up at anthony@pigfood.com. We also recently launched an agency program, so you can see some certified agencies that have learned how to use Pigfood. And if you're interested in joining that, please reach out. I'm always looking to get more and more hands-on with agencies to keep making better content like this. For Pigfood, anyone who doesn't know, Pigfood is a really easy way to do market research. So some of the things we talked about today, if you want to get input on your product packaging, if you want to get input on your main image, on your A+ content, Pigfood is a great way where you can upload those creative assets into our platform. And then we've got a panel of more than 10,000 people. You can select different audience groups and demographics and interests, and you show them your creative assets. And then they're not only voting, hey, do I like option A or do I like option B? They're giving you detailed feedback as to why. So that market research is really helpful in guiding your creative process, and is ideally the big companies we work with, a lot of aggregators in the space, they're using managed experiments, but they're using Pigfood before they get into the managed experiment, because Pigfood it's very fast. It only takes about 30 minutes to an hour. So you're going to get a split test done right away. You can go through many different versions, take what you learned, and then use it in managed experiments.
Okay, sounds cool. So thank you so much again for joining me today, and we wish you the best of luck.
Thanks again, Lisette.
If you would like to try Pigfood tool, find the link below in the description, as well as a 50% off discount code for your first test. And now I would like to invite you to watch other video where you will learn how to use Pigfood for your split testing of your Amazon FBA product images, design, listing copy. This Pigfood tutorial will show you the most common uses of this tool.